Hey boys and girls, today for your writing lesson, we're going to learn how to write a friendly letter. We probably wrote letters at Christmas time. You probably in your classroom wrote a letter to Santa, maybe, to tell him some things that you would like for Christmas. But that's probably the only time that we have worked on letter writing in first grade. So I want you to pay really close attention to my lesson today, okay? On this slide, I've put a picture of this dog, and you're probably wondering, why in the world did she do that? Well, I'm going to teach you the parts of a friendly letter, and this puppy dog picture might help you kind of remember the parts of a friendly letter. And then when you get ready to write your own friendly letter, maybe this picture will help you remember, oh, I need to put my heading here and my greeting here and my body here. So I want you to pay close attention. So I have my dog turned and he's looking over here to the right of my page. That's because up at the top of the right hand side of your screen, do you see where I'm moving my mouse? You're going to put something that's called a heading. Now, a heading in a letter is just your address and the date that you wrote your letter. But just to keep things safe, we're going to use our school address. So when you do your heading, you're going to copy the address that Miss Bullock has on the next couple slides because we don't want to give out our address to anybody. Then after you do your heading, which is your address and your date, you're going to go kind of return sweep, but go back to the left. And you're going to start with what's called your greeting. Now, I made sure to have my dog's tail up top over here because I like to think of maybe what a dog does when you see him for the first time. He likes to greet you and he might get really happy and start wagging his tail. So that's why I put the greeting over on this side of the page with his tail picture, okay? Now, in your greeting, that's normally where we start out our letter by saying, dear, and then the person's name. And we put this special punctuation mark that's called a comma. After we do our greeting, we move down and we do the body of our letter. Now, the body is where you do your writing to your friend. So I've got my picture of my dog's long body to help me remember. After my greeting, I write my letter. When I'm finished saying what I would like to say to my friend, I do what's called a closing. And if you notice, it's down here on the right side of our page again, isn't it? Normally we say, oh, go all the way to the end and return sweep and start writing on the left side. Well, for your closing, you go over to the right side of your screen again. And sometimes for a closing, when I'm writing to a friend, I might just end my closing by saying, your friend, and a comma. And then right underneath that is where I put my signature, which means I actually write my name, okay? So let's go over these important parts of the letter again. The heading is up top to the right. That's the address and the date that you wrote it. Then we come over to the left and we write our greeting, which is going to say dear and your friend's name. Then you go down and you write the body of your letter. That's where you're doing your actual writing. When we're finished with the body of our letter, then we have our closing, which is going to say your friend and a comma. And then right below that is where you put your signature. Okay? Now on this slide, I have actually written a letter to my friend Bob. And if you're in my class, you probably remember I have an imaginary friend named Bob. And Bob is usually my friend who I use as an example in class. So that's why I chose to write to Bob in my letter. Over here up top, the first thing I do over on the right-hand side is I do my heading. So I put the address, and we're all going to use our school address. 1101 Sherrall Drive, Florence. Oh, I got to put my comma. South Carolina 29501. Then right underneath that, I put the date. And today is January the 12th. Don't forget your comma, 2021. So then I come down to the left side of my paper, and now I'm doing what's called the greeting. So I said, Dear Bob, and I put a comma. I'm going to go down to my next line. This is where I wrote my letter. Usually in the body of a letter, you could maybe tell some interesting things that you've been doing, but you also need to ask your friend some questions so that when your friend writes back to you, they'll have some things to write in their letter to you, because then they can answer your questions. So in my letter, I said, How was your break? I had fun this Christmas. I miss seeing you in class. I look forward to seeing you on our Google Meet in the morning. Yesterday I played outside after I finished up my schoolwork. Then it started raining and I had to go inside. I played with my sister. What do you like to do when you finish your work? I can't wait to hear back from you. Your friend, Mrs. Bullock. So I wrote my letter to my friend Bob. You're going to get a name from your teacher of a student in your class, a friend in your class, and you're going to write a letter to that person. When everybody turns in their writings, then Miss Bullock will share them, or your teacher will share your letter to the person you wrote it to. And guess what? You're going to write back on Thursday. Doesn't that sound like fun? So when you do your letter writing, you're not going to write what I have over here in red. This is just kind of labeling again the parts of my friendly letter. This was my heading. This is my greeting, dear Bob. This says body. That's where I wrote the body of my letter. This was my closing, your friend. And then my signature, Mrs. Bullock. Here is a little template to get you started. On your own piece of paper, I want you to find a piece of paper at home to use for today. And you're going to start by coming over to the top right-hand corner of your paper. You're going to write our school's address and then today's date. Okay? And then you're going to come to the left side and you're going to write dear and your friend's name. Don't forget your little comma after your greeting. Then I want you to come up with at least 5 sentences for the body of your letter. So what I wrote here in red says, write the body of your letter here. You don't copy that. You're going to do your writing. Maybe ask your friend what they've been doing while we've been out of school. Maybe you want to know something that they got for Christmas, or maybe you would like to know if they traveled anywhere since we've been out of school, or who they've played with, or where they've gone. So you think of some cool things to ask and to tell your friend. You can come down for your closing, and I've already written your closing for you in black. It says your friend. You'll put your comma, and then you do your signature next. So that's why I put your name here in red. So when you get ready to start your writing, I want you to go back in the video to find this page so that it can help you with your journal writing to do your letter. Now, I'm going to show you in Seesaw. I'm going to go in through our sample student. I will have your lesson here for you to click on to listen to. But when you go to your next screen, it says, take a picture of your letter. Please make sure I can read your work. So come over here to your blue camera. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to click photo. Now, boys and girls, you've got to make sure that you have a really good picture. So when I hold it up to the screen, I can't take my picture like this because Miss Bullock can't read your writing, and the friend that I send it to will not be able to read your writing either. So you need to position it to where I can read it. Maybe you could get your mom and dad to help you, or somebody at home to help you get it lined up. You kind of see a little bit of a glare on mine, but that's okay. And then once I have it lined up perfectly, I'm going to click my camera and say, oh yeah, that looks good. I know Miss Bullock can read it. If you can read it, I can read it. If you can't read this picture, then you need to try it again, okay? Once you have your work loaded, I want you to click the green check and send it to your teacher. Good luck and have fun writing your letter.